Metro Exodus.
They want blood, they will get it.
When it comes to single-player FPS campaigns, Metro Exodus is in a league of its own. This game doesn't just throw you into shootouts and call it a day, it builds an entire post-apocalyptic world that pulls you in with atmospheric tension and a story that packs a serious punch. You play as Artyom, a survivor in a world devastated by nuclear war, who is finally leaving the dark, claustrophobic tunnels of the metro for the open, dangerous Russian wilderness. But don't be fooled, freedom comes at a cost, and every step outside feels like a fight for survival. What sets Metro Exodus apart is its balance between intense firefights and slower atmospheric moments where you're just trying to survive. Supplies are scarce, your weapons constantly need maintenance, and the world itself is filled with threats, both human and mutant. You're not some unstoppable action hero, you're vulnerable, and that makes every encounter feel tense as hell. The firefights are gritty, brutal, and usually over in a heartbeat if you're not careful. The story is just as important as the gameplay. Artyom's journey is about hope. He's searching for a safe place to live in a world that's falling apart. Along the way, you meet a cast of characters that bring a lot of heart to the game, from loyal soldiers to civilians just trying to get by. The choices you make impact the people around you, and the weight of those decisions stays with you. It's not just about shooting your way through enemies, it's about who you become by the end of it.
So I had a little drink here to celebrate.
Visually, the game is stunning. Each location, from snow-covered wastelands to dense, irradiated forests, is packed with detail, and the atmosphere is thick with danger and dread. The world feels alive even though it's broken, and every new area you explore keeps things fresh, while still reminding you how unforgiving the world has become. The pacing in Metro Exodus is masterful. 1 minute, you're sneaking through an enemy camp with just a handful of bullets, and the next, you're watching the sunset over a desolate landscape, taking in the calm before the storm. It's that mix of quiet, reflective moments and heart-pounding action that makes the campaign so memorable. If you're a fan of FPS campaigns that don't just challenge your trigger finger but also engage your emotions, Metro Exodus is a must-play. It's not just about surviving, it's about finding hope in the ruins of the world, and that journey is one hell of a ride. Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus. Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus is one of those FPS campaigns that doesn't just go hard, it goes all in. You play as BJ Blazkowicz, the legendary Nazi killing machine, and this time you're leading a revolution against the Nazi regime in an alternate version of America. The game throws you into the action right from the start, and it never lets up. It's loud, bloody, and over the top, but what really makes it shine is its insane mix of brutal gunplay and surprisingly deep storytelling. The action? Pure chaos in the best way possible. You've got dual-wielding weapons, ridiculous firepower, and enemies that feel like they're just begging to be torn apart. Whether you're charging headfirst into a room full of Nazis or sneaking around with a silenced pistol, every combat encounter feels satisfying as hell. The gunplay is fast, brutal, and relentless. You're constantly in motion, dodging, shooting, and reloading, all while blowing apart anything in your path. And let's be honest, there's something wildly cathartic about mowing down waves of Nazis with BJ's arsenal, but Wolfenstein 2 isn't just about mindless action. The story is packed with emotional weight, and it really digs into BJ's character. He's been through the ringer, beaten down physically and emotionally, and the game explores his personal struggles in a way that feels surprisingly human. You get these quieter moments where BJ reflects on his past, his trauma, and the people he's lost, and those moments give the whole campaign an emotional depth that most FPS games don't even come close to. Plus, the cast of supporting characters like Anya, Grace, and Set bring a lot of personality to the revolution. The alternate history setting is wild and unsettling, with America under Nazi rule and resistance fighters trying to take the country back. The levels are varied and packed with detail, from Nazi-occupied small towns to the twisted halls of their military bases. You'll be fighting on trains, in giant war machines, and even in outer space, and every location is just as crazy as it sounds. The game doesn't shy away from showing the horrors of fascism, and it's not afraid to get dark, but it always knows when to throw in some humor to keep things balanced. And we can't forget about the villain Frau Engel. She's straight up terrifying and her presence looms over the entire campaign. She's one of those villains you love to hate, and taking her on makes the whole journey feel personal. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus is everything you want in an FPS campaign type gunplay, a gripping story, and larger-than-life action. It's loud, intense, and ridiculously fun, but it also manages to hit you in the feels when you least expect it. If you're into fast-paced shooters with a story that packs a punch, this game is an absolute must. RoboCop. RoboCop is a cult classic turned into one of the most memorable FPS campaigns ever. You step into the metallic boots of Alex Murphy, aka RoboCop, patrolling the streets of Detroit in a dystopian future where crime is out of control and the line between man and machine is blurred. This game lets you live out that power fantasy. You're not just any cop, you're a walking tank with some serious firepower, and every mission feels like an 80s action movie come to life. The combat in RoboCop is pure, unfiltered mayhem. You're slower than most FPS protagonists, but that's because you're packing enough armor to shrug off bullets like they're nothing. Walking into a room full of criminals and gunning them down with your Auto 9 pistol feels incredibly satisfying. The game leans into that power fantasy of being unstoppable. Headshots, explosions, and brutal takedowns are all part of the package. There's something awesome about being a one-man army, blowing away thugs while delivering classic RoboCop one-liners. But it's not just mindless action. The game captures the dark, satirical tone of the original movie, with the grimy, corporate-controlled future of Detroit as your battleground. As RoboCop, you're constantly torn between following your programming and finding your humanity, and that struggle is reflected in both the story and the gameplay. You're not just dealing with street crime, you're facing corrupt corporations, rogue machines, and a city on the edge of collapse.
Take control of the streets, but we are not alone.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Visually, the game embraces its cyberpunk aesthetic. From the towering skyscrapers to the rundown slums, every part of Detroit looks like it's decaying under the weight of corruption and greed. The levels are designed to give you that perfect balance between high-octane shootouts and moments where you feel the weight of the world on RoboCop's shoulders. It's dark, gritty, and has that retro-futuristic vibe that fans of the movie will love. The campaign throws you into a variety of missions, from protecting civilians to hunting down dangerous criminals and fighting off heavily armed gangs. The more you play, the more you get to experience RoboCop's arsenal of upgrades, letting you customize how you take down enemies, whether it's with brute force or through tactical precision. And let's not forget, you've got all those iconic RoboCop gadgets at your disposal, adding another layer of fun to the gameplay. If you're a fan of FPS campaigns that combine over-the-top action with a strong narrative, RoboCop delivers in spades. It nails that mix of intense firefights, dark humor, and the feeling of being this unstoppable machine with a human soul buried somewhere deep inside. Whether you're a longtime fan of the movies or just looking for a unique FPS experience, this game is a blast from start to finish. Dying Light.
I could use your help. I'm not a murderer.
Dying Light takes the traditional zombie FPS campaign and cranks it up by throwing parkour into the mix, making it one of the most intense single-player experiences out there. You're Kyle Crane, an undercover agent dropped into a quarantine city overrun by the infected. Your mission? Infiltrate and survive. But it doesn't take long before you realize that the infected aren't the only things you need to worry about. The game brilliantly mixes fast-paced parkour movement with brutal combat, and it never lets you feel completely safe. The parkour system is a game changer. You're not just running from zombies, you're leaping over buildings, vaulting fences, and sliding under obstacles, all while trying to stay one step ahead of the horde. It makes exploring the city of Heron both exhilarating and terrifying. The open world is your playground, but once the sun sets, the real terror begins. Nighttime in Dying Light is when things go from run for your life to pray you survive. As the more aggressive, faster volatiles come out to hunt, the tension is crazy and you'll feel your heart pounding as you try to find safety before darkness fully takes over. Combat is brutal and visceral. Whether you're smashing a zombie's head in with a makeshift bat or using a machete to slice through hordes of infected, every hit feels impactful. We've got a wide variety of weapons, and each can be modified to deal extra damage or add elemental effects like fire or electricity. And it's not just about fighting. The infected human enemies are just as dangerous, forcing you to think strategically in combat situations. What sets Dying Light apart is how it makes movement and exploration feel just as important as the combat. You're constantly scavenging for supplies, crafting new gear, and upgrading your skills, which all adds to the tension of survival. The more you explore, the more you unlock, and the deeper you get into the story. Speaking of which, while it's a zombie apocalypse narrative at its core, it keeps you hooked with unexpected twists, moral choices, and a cast of characters that aren't just trying to survive, they're trying to figure out what it means to still be human in a world that's falling apart. The game's setting is gorgeous in a bleak kind of way. Heron is detailed and atmospheric, from the decaying city streets to the abandoned buildings, and the way the environment shifts between day and night adds a layer of danger that few games pull off this well. Every time the sun sets, you're faced with a choice: risk it all for a mission or hunker down and wait for daylight. If you love first-person action with a survival twist, Dying Light is one of the best FPS campaigns out there. The combination of parkour, brutal combat, and the terrifying shift between day and night makes every moment feel tense and rewarding. It's not just about surviving the infected, it's about learning how to thrive in a world that's always trying to kill you. Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 is the kind of game that takes you on a ride and never lets go. You're thrown into the middle of a tropical paradise that's gone straight to hell, and it's up to you, playing as Jason Brody, to figure out how to survive. What starts as a vacation with friends turns into a nightmare when you're captured by one of the craziest, most unpredictable villains you'll ever meet in a game. Right from the start, you know this isn't going to be a typical island adventure. The open world gameplay is what makes Far Cry 3 so damn good. You're on this massive island, and the game doesn't just hand you missions. You can do whatever the hell you want. Want to take out an enemy camp with stealth? Go for it. Prefer to run in guns blazing? That works too. The game gives you all the tools, and it's up to you how to handle every situation. And trust me, the freedom feels incredible. You're crafting weapons, hunting animals for upgrades, and using everything the environment gives you to survive. But let's talk about Voss. This dude is insane. He's one of the best villains in gaming, hands down. His unpredictability and the way he messes with Jason makes every encounter with him feel intense. He's the kind of character who steals the show every time he's on screen. You know something crazy is about to go down. It's not just about the big action moments he gets in your head, and it makes the story so much more engaging.
Oh, Jesus.
The island itself is beautiful but deadly. You'll be exploring lush jungles, diving into deep blue waters, and climbing mountains, but danger is lurking everywhere. Whether it's wild animals attacking out of nowhere or enemy patrols trying to hunt you down, you're never really safe. And that's what makes the game so fun. There's always something happening, and you've got to stay sharp. Far Cry 3's mix of action, exploration, and a gripping story makes it one of the best FPS campaigns out there. The way the game blends intense firefights with quieter moments of survival and exploration is perfect, and honestly, it's just a blast to play. The story's got twists, the characters are memorable, and the gameplay gives you so much freedom that you'll lose hours just getting lost in the world. If you're into FPS games where you can approach things your way, Far Cry 3 is an absolute must-play. It's got action, tension, and some wild moments that you won't forget. Just be ready once you dive in, you won't want to leave the island. Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 is a beast of a game that throws you headfirst into Night City, a neon-drenched, futuristic dystopia where everything's about power, tech, and survival. You play as V, a mercenary trying to make it big, but things go sideways fast when you end up with Johnny Silverhand, a rebel rockstar played by Keanu Reeves, stuck in your head. From there, it's a crazy ride full of tough choices, shootouts, hacking, and trying to not lose your mind, literally. The city itself is the real star here. Night City is just alive. Everywhere you go, it's packed with details from the bustling markets to the high-end corporate towers. It's chaotic, dangerous, and absolutely gorgeous. The first time you step out into the streets, you'll probably just stand there soaking it all in because the world feels so damn real. You can spend hours just exploring, and it's not just window dressing. The city's full of stuff to do, people to meet, and of course trouble to get into. The combat is slick and satisfying. Whether you're going in guns blazing, hacking your way through enemy systems, or using stealth, the game gives you tons of options to approach every situation. And the weapons, they're crazy fun to use. From smart guns that lock onto targets to cybernetic enhancements that let you slice through enemies with ease, it never gets boring. Plus, the upgrades and mods let you customize V to suit your playstyle, which gives you a ton of freedom. The story's intense and it hits hard. There's a lot of moral gray areas in Cyberpunk, and you're constantly making decisions that impact how things play out. The characters are memorable, especially Johnny Silverhand, who's got this badass, rebellious attitude but is also haunted by his past. His interactions with V are some of the best parts of the game, and the way their relationship develops keeps things interesting. The whole game has this undercurrent of how much are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want, and it makes you think. And let's not forget the RPG elements. You're constantly upgrading V, unlocking new skills, and tweaking your cyberware to make you even more of a force in Night City. Whether you're specializing in hacking, combat, or stealth, the game lets you play your way, and the customization runs deep. Plus, the side quests are some of the best parts of the game. They're not just filler, they're full of interesting stories, characters, and moments that make you care about this messed up world. Sure, the game had its rough launch, but at its core, Cyberpunk 2077 is one hell of an experience. It's a game that grabs you with its world, hooks you with its story, and keeps you coming back with its gameplay. If you're into FPS campaigns that give you freedom, story depth, and a sprawling world to get lost in, this one's a must play. Just be ready for a wild ride. Night City doesn't pull any punches. Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 is one of those games that came out of nowhere and blew everyone away, especially with its single-player campaign. Most people expected it to be all about the multiplayer, but damn, the campaign is easily one of the best in the FPS genre. You play as Jack Cooper, a regular grunt who gets thrown into the pilot's seat of a Titan, basically a giant mech after his mentor dies in battle. From there, it's you and your Titan buddy BT-7274 going on a mission to save the day, and honestly, the bond between you and BT is what makes this game special. The campaign is fast and smooth. The parkour movement where you can run along walls, double jump and slide makes every firefight feel incredibly fluid. You're always on the move and it keeps the adrenaline pumping. Then there's the mix of combat where you're either on foot as a pilot or controlling BT in full-on mech mode. The shift between pilot and Titan is seamless and it keeps the gameplay fresh. One minute you're sprinting across rooftops, the next you're stomping through enemies in a Titan, blasting everything in sight. It's the perfect mix of speed and power. What really takes Titanfall 2's campaign to the next level are the level designs. There's one mission in particular effect and cause that everyone talks about because it's straight up genius. You're flipping between two timelines in real time, solving puzzles and fighting enemies by switching back and forth. It's one of those moments that hits you like, whoo, this is next level, and the game is packed with little surprises like that, constantly keeping things interesting. BT is more than just a big robot you climb into. He's got personality. The game really nails the dynamic between Jack and BT, and by the end you actually care about this big mech. The dialogue between them has some funny moments, but there's also a lot of heart. It's rare for an FPS campaign to make you care this much about its characters, but Titanfall 2 does it effortlessly. If you're looking for an FPS campaign that mixes fast-paced action with clever level design and a story that'll actually make you care, Titanfall 2 is an absolute must-play. It's short, sweet, and packs a punch. One of the best FPS campaigns out there, hands down. Doom 2016. Doom 2016 is pure chaotic fun. There's no complicated plot or deep moral choices, it's just you, a badass space marine, and a whole lot of demons that need to be blasted back to hell. From the moment you start, it's clear that this game doesn't mess around. You wake up, grab a shotgun, and get straight to tearing through hordes of demons like it's your damn job. And honestly, that's exactly what makes it so fun. The combat in Doom is fast, brutal, and insanely satisfying. You're constantly moving, running, jumping, dodging while unloading round after round into whatever demonic nightmare is in front of you. Standing still is basically a death sentence, so the game forces you to stay aggressive. The glory kills are some of the most brutal finishers you'll ever see, and they keep the pace high since you get health back every time you pull one off. It's this rhythm of shoot, dodge, punch, repeat that makes the game feel so damn good to play. The weapons are straight up insane. From the classic double-barreled shotgun to the devastating BFG, literally the big effing gun. Every weapon feels powerful and satisfying to use. And the game doesn't hold back on the ammo either, it's like they want you to go nuts. You're not just mowing down demons, you're doing it in style, and it never gets old. Visually, the game nails that hellish vibe. You're on Mars, sure, but once the demons start pouring in from hell, everything gets crazy. Fire, blood, metal, everything feels like it's straight out of a heavy metal album cover. The levels are packed with secrets, upgrades, and just enough variety to keep things interesting, but let's be real, you're here to rip and tear through demons, and that's exactly what the game delivers. The soundtrack deserves a shout out too. It's this intense industrial metal score that perfectly matches the speed and chaos of the gameplay. It amps you up and makes every firefight feel like the most intense thing ever. You'll be headbanging along while blasting demons into pieces, and it just feels right. If you're looking for a game that doesn't waste time with unnecessary fluff and gets straight to the action, Doom 2016 is perfect. It's fast, brutal, and damn fun from start to finish. No deep storylines, no complicated mechanics, just pure, unfiltered demon-slaying madness. And sometimes that's all you really need. Singularity. Singularity might not have hit the same level of fame as other FPS games, but damn, it deserves a spot on this list. It's got everything you want in a single-player campaign: time manipulation, insane weapons, and a storyline that keeps you hooked from start to finish. You play as Captain Renko, a soldier who stumbles upon a secret Russian experiment gone horribly wrong on a remote island, and things get crazy real fast. The game's biggest hook is the time manipulation device TMD. This thing lets you control time in some really wild ways, aging objects to dust, restoring things to their original state, or even aging enemies into nothing but skeletons. You can mess with the environment, solve puzzles, and completely change the flow of combat with this one device. It's a blast to use and gives the game a unique feel compared to most shooters. Combat in Singularity is fast and chaotic. You've got your standard guns, sure, but once you start using the TMD, the fights get way more interesting. You're freezing enemies in time, rewinding objects, and turning the battlefield into your playground. It's a crazy mix of shooting and time-bending action, and when you pull off a perfectly timed TMD move, damn, it's satisfying. The story is another strong point. It's got a cool mix of sci-fi and Cold War vibes with lots of twists and turns as you jump between different time periods. The narrative keeps you guessing, and it's full of those what the hell just happened moments that make you want to keep pushing through. It's like a mix of BioShock and Half-Life, but with its own fresh spin. And while Singularity doesn't have the most cutting-edge graphics by today's standards, it nails the atmosphere. The island feels eerie and dangerous, like something terrible happened there, which it totally did. Between the crumbling ruins of old Soviet labs and the weird time anomalies scattered everywhere, the world pulls you in and keeps you on edge. If you're looking for an underrated gem with a cool twist on FPS gameplay, Singularity is definitely worth checking out. It's got a solid story, fun mechanics, and plenty of intense moments that will keep you hooked. Time manipulation, wild weapons, and a gripping plot. Yeah, this one's a must play. Before we continue the video, a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Instant Gaming. If you're like me and love getting the best deals on games, you'll definitely want to check them out. Their games come directly from authorized resellers, so you're getting legit deals, not third-party marketplace nonsense. And while you're there, don't miss their pre-orders page, perfect for snagging the next big release before everyone else. If you're a multi-platform player, you'll love how easy it is to switch between PC, PlayStation, and more right from their homepage. Halo Reach. Halo Reach is the kind of FPS campaign that just sticks with you. It's intense, emotional, and a bit of a gut punch for longtime fans of the series. You play as a member of Noble Team, a group of Spartans fighting to protect the planet Reach from the Covenant invasion. And if you know your Halo lore, you already know this isn't going to end well. That sense of looming tragedy hangs over the entire campaign, giving the whole thing a different vibe from other Halo games. The gameplay is classic Halo type, responsive, and just damn fun. You've got all the iconic weapons at your disposal, from the trusty assault rifle to the badass energy sword, and each firefight feels like a high-stakes battle for survival. But what makes Reach stand out is how it balances those big action set pieces with quieter, more personal moments. You're not just a one-man army here, you're part of a team, and the game makes you care about each of the characters as you fight alongside them. Noble Team is really what gives this campaign its heart. Each member has their own personality and backstory, and you get attached to them as you move through the campaign. When things start going south, it hits hard, and the final moments of the game. Man, they're some of the most emotional in the entire Halo series. You know what's coming, but it doesn't make it any easier.
We're going down. Look your armor, Spartan!
Visually, Reach is stunning, especially for its time. The battle-scarred landscapes, the massive Covenant warships hovering overhead, and the brutal firefights all come together to create a sense of scale that feels epic. The game takes you from ground-pounding combat to aerial dogfights in space, mixing things up enough to keep you constantly on your toes. The pacing is perfect too. One moment you're in an all-out war zone, the next you're sneaking behind enemy lines or defending a base from an overwhelming Covenant attack. Each mission feels distinct, and it keeps the action fresh while still driving the story forward. And the multiplayer, well, that's a whole other level of fun, but the campaign is where Reach really shines. If you're a fan of Halo or just love a good FPS campaign, Halo Reach is an absolute must-play. It's got everything: tight combat, a gripping story, and an emotional punch that hits hard. It's not just about fighting the Covenant, it's about sacrifice, loyalty, and knowing when the fight is bigger than you. This is Halo at its best. Crysis 2007. When people talk about Crysis, they usually ask, can it run Crysis, because this game was a beast back in the day. But it's not just about the graphics though, damn, the game still looks crazy good for something released in 2007. It's the gameplay that really sets Crysis apart. You play as Nomad, part of an elite military unit equipped with these insane nanosuits that basically turn you into a one-man army. And trust me, when you start messing around with the suit's abilities, you feel unstoppable. The nano suit is what makes the gameplay so damn fun. You've got options: cloaking for stealth, maximum strength to punch enemies through walls, or maximum speed to zip around the map. And let's not forget the maximum armor mode, which lets you tank through firefights like a walking tank. The game gives you the freedom to approach each encounter however you want. Want to sneak around and take out enemies quietly? You can do that. Prefer to go in guns blazing? Hell yeah, that works too. The environments in Crysis are open and sprawling, especially for an FPS in 2007. You're dropped into this lush tropical island which looks gorgeous, and the game gives you plenty of room to explore and tackle objectives your way. There's a mix of jungles, enemy camps, and eventually some sci-fi madness once you get deeper into the story. And let's talk about the enemies first. You're dealing with North Korean soldiers, but then things get wild when aliens start showing up. It turns from a military shooter into a full-on sci-fi showdown. The physics in Crysis were ahead of their time. You can blow up buildings, knock down trees, and the way everything reacts to your actions just adds to the immersion. It's one of those games where you're constantly impressed by what you can do and how the world reacts to your every move. And of course the visuals. Even today, Crysis holds up incredibly well. The lighting, the textures, the draw distance, it was revolutionary back in the day, and it still looks damn good. The game pushed PCs to their limits, and if you had the rig to run it on max settings, it was mind-blowing. But But even without top tier graphics, the game itself is just solid fun. Crysis isn't just a tech demo though, it's got a solid story, intense firefights, and that feeling of power thanks to the nanosuit. It's an FPS that gives you freedom and flexibility, which makes every playthrough feel different. If you haven't played Crysis yet, it's worth diving into even now. It's still one of the best FPS campaigns ever made. Fear. Fear is one of those games that perfectly mixes intense action with moments that'll make you jump out of your seat. You play as a member of the First Encounter Assault Recon, hence the name Fear, and your job is to deal with supernatural threats. But right from the start, you know something is seriously wrong. There's this creepy little girl named Alma, and every time she shows up, things get real messed up real fast. The combat in Fear is some of the best you'll find in an FPS. It's fast, brutal, and the gunfights feel insane. You've got this slow motion ability, and using it in the middle of a firefight is so damn satisfying. You can see every bullet flying, enemies react in real time, and explosions send debris flying everywhere. It's not just about shooting, it's about how cool it feels to pull off these crazy stunts while everything's happening in slow motion. And trust me, once you get used to using that slow-mo, you'll feel like a total badass. But what really makes Fear stand out is how it blends that awesome action with horror. Alma, the little girl I mentioned earlier, is straight up terrifying. The game loves to mess with you. One moment you're mowing down enemies in a crazy firefight, and the next, Alma shows up out of nowhere, and the whole vibe changes. You'll be walking down a hallway, and suddenly the walls bleed, or you'll hear creepy whispers. The jump scares are no joke, and they hit you when you least expect it. The story is pretty wild too. It starts off as this standard military mission, but the deeper you go, the weirder it gets. There are conspiracies, psychic experiments, and a lot of messed up things happening behind the scenes. And the more you learn about Alma and what's really going on, the more the tension ramps up. By the end, you'll be wondering what the hell just happened, but in the best way. If you're into FPS games that mix solid gunplay with some seriously creepy horror elements, Fear is a must play. The action is tight, the scares are real, and it's just a hell of a ride from start to finish. Get ready for some intense firefights and a few moments that'll have you looking over your shoulder. Bulletstorm. Bulletstorm is one of those games that doesn't take itself too seriously, and honestly, that's what makes it so damn fun. You're not here for a deep story or some emotional roller coaster. No, Bulletstorm is all about causing as much chaos as possible and looking badass while you do it. You play as Grayson Hunt, a foul-mouthed, hard-drinking mercenary who's stranded on a planet full of psychopaths, mutants, and just about everything that wants to kill you. The gameplay? Straight up insane. The whole point of the game is to get creative with how you take down enemies. You're not just shooting them, you're kicking them into spikes, blowing them up with explosive barrels, or using your electric leash to yank them toward you and then smash them into something deadly. The more creative and over the top your kills are, the more points you rack up. It's like they took every action movie kill scene you've ever loved and cranked it up to 11. The skill shot system is what makes this game stand out. You're rewarded for pulling off the most ridiculous kills, and trust me, you'll want to try everything. Kicking an enemy off a cliff, launching them into the air, and then blowing them to pieces with a shotgun mid-flight. Yeah, that's the kind of crazy stuff you'll be doing, and it never gets old. It's all about style here, and the game gives you tons of weapons and tools to play around with. The story isn't going to win any awards, but it's got that over-the-top, ridiculous charm that makes it fun. Grayson's out for revenge, and the dialogue is filled with crude humor and one-liners that hit just the right spot. It's not meant to be deep, it's meant to make you laugh and enjoy the chaos. And if you're into games that don't take themselves too seriously, this one's a blast. Visually, Bulletstorm is bright, colorful, and full of explosive action. The world is a mix of jungles, deserts, and futuristic cityscapes, and it all looks like a playground for destruction. You'll be sliding around, kicking enemies, and blowing things up with the world constantly falling apart around you. It's non-stop action, and the game never lets you catch your breath. If you're looking for a game that's all about mindless fun, over-the-top action, and making every kill look as ridiculous as possible, Bulletstorm is exactly what you need. It's loud, it's crazy, and it's just a damn good time from start to finish. Well everyone, that was all for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Maybe drop a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day.